All right. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to Coaches Coaching Coaches. I came up with that a few weeks ago. I really like it. It's May the 5th. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tim O'Connor. I'm a golf and mental performance coach. And right now I'm also doing some webinars called Obedience Training for Your Brain, which is really fun to do. Presenting them at clubs and different places. So, gosh, this is what, week 7 or 8 of the zombie apocalypse lockdown. There's lots of excitement in golf. I think most of the provinces have got their golf courses going. We're waiting eagerly in Ontario to find out when our courses are going to open. And I imagine most states now, I know our good friends George McNamara and Harry Hammond, their courses are finally open in Pennsylvania. So anyways, welcome to our call today. It's been really fun to watch our community of golf coaches grow, sharing and learning from each other. And so today we got a really good call today. Last week was awesome too. I mean, a lot of people said it was really fascinating to hear from Mike Martz about what he learned playing golf and learning golf with his pal, the late amazing Mo Norman. And I posted that to my YouTube channel as I post all of these calls. So if you want to go revisit that or you missed it, go find it on my YouTube channel. So today we've got Ralph Bauer. He's going to lead off our call today. And Ralph's going to be doing some pretty cool stuff. I'll tell you in a minute. But I encourage you to ask, this is great access to have to someone like Ralph Bauer to ask him lots of questions. You can just chime in, hey, Ralph, I want to ask a question, or send me a note or something like that. So, and remind everyone that when you're not talking, if you got some background noise, just to mute yourselves. Okay, so let's get going. So I've been really fortunate to get to know Ralph over the last couple of years. As many of you are aware, I coach the University of Guelph golf team, and Ralph's daughter, Rachel, is on our team. She's, in fact, the captain of our women's team. So it's been really cool to get to know Ralph, just walking along fairways, talking. And also, he was kind enough last year to come to one of our practices, and it was amazing what our players learned, particularly about short game and getting ready. So it's been really cool. Ralph is highly regarded in the coaching community. Coaches Adam Hadwin, Kyle Stanley, Jonny Vegas, just among a few of the players. So before I turn it over to Ralph, I just want to ask a couple things, help people perhaps get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to turn it over to you in a little while so you can run through kind of the program that we're going to look at today. But maybe just give us an idea. How did you get into coaching? I know you were a golf pro before. I think you ran a club. How'd you get into coaching?
Yeah, I played golf myself, right? I went to school and saved on a golf scholarship, right? And, tried to play professionally, wasn't very good. And they say those who can't do should teach, right? So I thought, hey, let's get into teaching then. And, in fact, it's kind of a funny story. The first, I got in the golf business, so I wrote down a list of goals. My number one goal is to never give a golf lesson, right? So, I mean, how am I doing with that? Not very good. But, then I thought, hey, you know what? If I could do a great job with it, right, or at least try to do a great job with it, then it'd be something I'd be interested in doing, right? So kind of went full bore at it in about 2000, right? I've been doing it kind of ever since, which has been great. I've been lucky of, been able to travel all over the world, get to work with the best players, and, it's been a lot of fun.
So what allowed you to progress from coaching, amateurs, good players to PGA Tour players?
So that's a good question. So I started off, trying to, get everybody I worked with as good as possible, like, trying to get everybody to improve, right? So I started working with, juniors and elite amateurs and stuff. And I was a decent player, so they kind of gravitated towards me, I guess, a bit. But then, I had success at a kind of a lower level, right? Like, so I think I won 25 per, GAO championships. I kind of could help kids get to the point where they could win the Ontario Amateur or win the Ontario Junior and things like that, right? And then somebody said, "What's your goal?" I'm like, well, nobody's going to call you if if they, you know, see you, oh my gosh, this coach had somebody win the Ontario Junior, right? So then I thought, well, that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them into a tour player. Then I'll, you know, have a tour player to work with, right? So kind of quit my day job and did that for a year, and it worked, right? So within a year, the guy was on tour, and it was actually David Hearn was kind of my first, you know, tour player. He was on the web at the time, or I think that's what it was called then, but what Corn Ferry Tour, you know, and he had partial status. So he kind of worked his way up to, you know, within a year getting full status on the tour, and then, you know, then I was a coach on the PGA Tour. So that's just kind of how that worked. But it's been a leap of faith for sure to, you know, kind of quit teaching at the club to go follow golfers around and try to get them on tour. But, you know, not sure I'd do it again, but it worked out good for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I find really interesting about you, Ralph, is that it appears to me like you walk your talk. I mean, you are very passionate and knowledgeable about nutrition. I think you went vegan a couple of years ago. Outrageous level of fitness. You put up really cool videos of yourself hitting off of you know, those wobble boards off. I think I saw one off a paddle board. You run a lot, and you know, you play very well. And not every coach does that. So how does your ability to say walk your talk play into being a coach?
Well, I think it's important when you're dealing with players at a high level that they've got some respect for you as an athlete. You know, the nutrition part's important to me. I think I went vegan about 6 years ago. I took a course from Cornell University, which is the highest level education. I just, you know, if you're dealing with the best players in the world, you need to be on top of your game. You need to keep pushing yourself to, you know, to keep getting better and better as a coach, you know, and there's, I know me personally, I like going to the gym with the guys, you know, working out, you know, having, you know, just kind of, I just think it's important. I don't know what other coaches do with that, but I just think it's important for myself to be able to, you know, keep my game up at a good level, right? And you know, keep my fitness up as well. I don't think it's a good idea to, especially working with juniors. Like tour players are going to do their thing anyways, but I think working with juniors and young amateurs, I think if I tell them to eat well and I don't eat well myself, I think that's a bit hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things, so we're going to get into now. I'm going to pass it over to you in a moment. I'm going to try and make a segue here. It might be a stretch, but one of the things that I picked up from you, that the practice session that we had with the Guelph golf team and walking with you, and maybe a bit what you're talking about is having a real sort of structure and foundation. That seems really important to you. Maybe that's a place to start as I turn it over to you about analyzing golf swings on video. What are sort of the structural pieces that are important to you in terms of doing that well? And then Ralph, you can just run with it in terms of go program.
Yeah, Tim. Okay, so I'll get started here. So Tim approached me to kind of do one of these, and I thought, you know, I don't really want to just talk about what I do, and I just thought to kind of it'd be funner and a little bit more, you know. And again, feel free to have any questions. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do. I'm just saying this is what I do, right? So I've got 3 golf swings here that I thought we could take a look at. It was kind of unique. They all sent me the videos, right? Like Jeff, Greg, and Howard here, but there was no context with them. Like normally somebody comes for a golf lesson, they're going to present you there and say, hey, like, you know, my wedges are great, my long irons are terrible. You know, can you help me with that? So then in your head spinning, you're like, okay, well, they're probably coming in steep. And so they're working okay with their wedges, but it's not helping their long irons, right? So, you know, but these ones were just golf swings. So I just, you know, probably, you know, you'd hate to do it if somebody sent you a golf swing without any context. You're like, hey, I'm playing the best golf of my life. I don't want any feedback.
Well, Ralph, it's Howard here. Just before you start, the shirt I'm wearing only looks like the shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
And because of a lockdown, I only change my pants once a week.
Fair enough. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just show you a swing here of just this. I think we can all be impressed that he took this. I'll show you in real time first, right? think we'd all be impressed he's hitting shots off a carpet without making a divot, right? So I looked at this a few times in slow-mo, right? And Howard came to my house one time. Go ahead and play that. Just kind of watching it a few times. Good golf swing, not a lot of, or I'm sorry, maybe a little extra motion that we need. One of the things important to me is that right foot, like that right foot should be flared out a little bit more. You know, we need to act, and flaring that out is going to just take some stress off his lower back. When he got
Ralph,
right away.
you're kind of cutting out there a little bit there, pal. What was the last thing you said?
That right foot should be flared, right? So just to kind of help, you know, rotate a little bit better. And I think it's to play well, but I think it's also important to, you know, not get injured, right? And to me, that just is constrict. It's going to constrict his backswing a little bit more than we need. And you can see right away it's got a little bit of motion. So I'm just kind of taking a look at that. And like I said, he's a good player. That looks pretty good. But I think there's some room for improvement. So I've got here a reply. By the way, if anybody has any questions, feel free. I can just pause it. But here's a reply I made for him. So I think this is about, yeah.
Hey, Ralph, it's Tim. Ralph, I just want to make you aware that your audio is cutting out every once in a while. So just, I don't know if there's a way you could get, I don't know, somebody get your modem closer to you or some damn thing. But, you know, we'll hope, I don't know what that can be done just to improve the audio a little bit. The video seems pretty good, but every once in a while you're cutting out. So I think what we'll just have to do is you'll just have to bear with us every once in a while. Say, Ralph, can you say that again or something?
No problem. So this is a recording that I did this morning. I took a look at Howard's swing and I just did like a 1.5-minute recording, you know, on it. So I'll just go ahead and play that. And hopefully that works out all right. But hey, feel free to pause. I can explain it. Basically what's going to happen is I don't like that. I think that right foot should be flared out a little bit more. And I think his head's moving back a little too much early in the swing.
I'm not hearing anything, Ralph.
You can't hear anything? Okay, I'll just voice over while I'm doing this. If that's all right. So yeah. It's funny because it's sharing the screen, but it's not sharing the audio for some reason. Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and I remember that. I just drew a line where that was. And then you see that first move, how he's moved off the ball, which we don't really need. And then as we're back, you know, like I said, he's making a pretty good move. I think if this right this right more, his hips would rotate back a little bit more, and you get a little bit more. It's a nice turn, but I know Howard wants to be, you know, a real good player, and you know, quite a bit of. So now you've kind of done a good job of getting back to where you started, right, with your spine, right? But then we're going to fall back a little bit through impact. So anytime I see somebody falling back, first thing I think of is, well, did he go back necessarily, you know, earlier in the swing? And I'm like, yeah, his first, you know, was falling back off of it, which is something that we didn't really need to do, right? So what I would get him to do is I would get him to take a back swing, right, like a P2 position where his left arm is parallel to the ground, right? Get him to this would be like a drill that he would do. So he would take the club back to his left arm's parallel to the ground, right? You know, he'd be pretty aware at that point if his head's moved back or not, right? And if it hasn't, then he should just hit the shot from there. So he would get to this position here, right? And then get there, you know, and then hit it from there. So, I mean, that's kind of what I think just to kind of tighten that turn up a little bit. Again, he didn't present with any issues that he was having, so that's just kind of me assuming.
Well, I can tell from having seen me swing in person, though, like that right foot flare part is definitely something that will help my back, I think. But in terms of like staying on top of it, like I think I do a pretty, like my miss is just a little bit of a tug left. And,
yeah, it makes, go ahead.
And the more pressure I'm under, whether it's a bigger tournament, that left comes up. But my
so go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, you're a good player. I'm not saying, you know, you're not a good player. I just think that, you know, we're hanging back a little too much through impact, you know. So I mean, you could flip your hands too much, you know, and you know, hit a hook, right, or block it from there. So I mean, I would like to see that.
What's the solution to not hanging back? What would you rather I do in terms of moving my whole body forward?
No, if you look at your impact position, your head is too far back. Here, I'll just go. I'll just play that.
Ralph, just a timeout. Hey, everyone, if you're not Ralph Bauer or Howard Glassman right now, mute yourself. We're getting a lot of background noise. It makes it difficult for everyone to hear. Okay, thanks. Ralph, back to you.
Okay, sorry. So, okay, so could you hold it for 1 sec?
I think the background is Ralph.
Okay, sorry.
That's beautiful.
So Howard, I think you're hanging back a little too much at impact.
I agree.
And right, well, the way I would fix that, me personally, first thing I would do is I would get you to do that P2 drill where you take the club back to the left arm parallel to the ground, right? And then that's going to eliminate that first move where you go back, where you very first move where you're moving off the golf ball, right? And then once we fix that first move, right? Then if you're still hanging back, well, then we can just kind of keep working through the process of what's the next best thing, what's the next best thing. I think the last time when I worked with you, we worked on maybe sliding shot, right? We're trying to, you know, lead a little bit more with our hands. And the only way we can do that, of course, if we get our body, you know, more over top of it. So that's kind of what I would get you to do. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I sort of understand what you're saying, but when you're saying like my first, I move off the ball. So if I don't move off the ball, I'll be hanging back less, is what you're saying.
Correct. Like you're hanging back at impact, and you're moving off of it right off the start.
Right.
So to me, if you eliminate that moving off it right off the start, that's 90% sure. Like we're all gonna hang back a little bit, but you're gonna hang back a little bit less if you can. You know, so that's what I'd do.
All right.
And
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, but it looks good. I'm not trying to. So let's go with Jeff Klein next. So I don't know,
Ralph.
Jeff,
I just want Ralph, Tim
yeah.
here. I just want to ask real quick. Maybe so. We've got people with all different levels of experience of breaking down videos. Maybe just quickly, what's one of the first couple of things that you look for in a swing before you start getting right down to nitty gritty stuff? So
I'll show you Greg's here.
Okay.
First thing I look at is the posture. Okay. So the first thing. So I've got Greg's swing here. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the posture, right? So you flex right over the balls of his feet. You know, the spine angles are hanging. You know, I think most people would agree this is really an excellent posture, right? So then you look at is your setup, and then your motion, right? Setup is going to tell us a lot, right? And then our ball position as well, which we'll see with Jeff. So, you know, when I'm looking at Greg's swing here, some nice swing. You know, here's a bit of a problem. Not a lot wrong with that. I did a little bit of a video up, slowing it down, and I'll just show you that, share that with.
Maybe just repeat again the audio difficulty there, Ralph. Maybe just quickly summarize what was the piece you saw in
okay.
Greg's
You know, it's
swing.
kind of funny. So when just to kind of show what's happening with that audio, when I play this with the audio, you guys seem to be having problems. So that must be part of the problem. So
Yeah.
what's happening? What's happening here? Like his setup looks really good. I'm just kind of going through that. What I would like to see him do, and partly just to protect his back, but he doesn't have a lot of hip rotation going back, right? So I think if he could, I like how his knees flexed like that. I like that. I would say he might have like a interior exterior hip rotation. Like most of us, we could stretch that a little bit more. So I would give him like a stretch to do. And I think if he did like an interior exterior hip rotation stretch with this trail leg especially, this would get freed up a little bit more and would have a little bit more of a little bit more rotation. And I think also that'll help him because he kind of dropped the club in a little bit too quick as a result. Let me just go ahead. So, yeah. So here, I mean, again, it looks really good. I'm just going to go into impact. So impact position here, see how he's fallen away from it a little bit here at the top. Not bad. I mean, pretty good, really good player. I just think that if we had a little bit more hip rotation going back. Greg, I don't know. Did you hit it like a big draw?
No. The last few years, I've started to get more of a draw. I used to play a consistent cut, but I
okay.
like, a little bit of a draw sometimes that I'm not a big fan of, but it has started to come more towards a draw versus the typical fade that I usually would play.
Okay. I would say, again, this looks really good. A little bit more rotation back. And I think that'll help with our hand path, getting our hand path more neutral, more in front of us, coming down into it. Which would let us maintain that spine angle a little bit better. To me, this looks really, really good. Like, this is probably a golf swing that you've got for because it looks good and you're hitting it well, right? But I just think a little bit more hip rotation would help save the back a little bit. Always cognizant.
I do fight a little bit of a sore back from time to time.
Yeah, and I think like I've got a good stretching program on my Instagram, right? It's like 5 minutes long, and I'd like to see it, do something like that, just to kind of loosen those hips up a little bit. I think it would help your back. You do a good job of having some differentiation between your hips here and your shoulders, like your shoulders nice and square, and you're doing a good job. Your front leg probably has pretty good interior hip rotation. It's just that your back leg might not. So it might be just jammed up a little bit. So it doesn't, probably not a structural issue. Most of us just stretch that enough. So here's a combination of, you could probably improve what this looks like on camera just by having a better stretch beforehand. I can't tell you how many people have come for a golf lesson. I'm like, you know what? It looks pretty good. It looks close. Why don't we stretch and then we'll do it, right? And I think, Tim, you came for a lesson one time. And I think or maybe Howard, one of you guys, we stretched beforehand. I think it's Howard. He's nodding up and down.
Oh, I did too.
A few years ago.
I found it amazing.
Yeah, a few years ago, rather than I kind of switched over from, instead of like having somebody hit some shots and not be very, not hitting them well, and then me pointing out, oh my gosh, this is bad, that's bad. I started to set ourselves up for success where we have a nice stretch, right? And then we start hitting golf shots and they can, start hitting it, pretty good right from the start, instead of having to stop the lesson and say, hey, you're not stretching properly, because, I've never actually had somebody come to me for a golf lesson that wasn't already a student of mine. Good stretch when they're like,
Ralph, I just want to interject for a minute here. So that stretching piece that you taught me a couple of years ago, I will say I felt a bit weird jumping up and down and deep in the in the Blue Springs locker room. But you worked with our trainer of our golf team, Brooke Benny, and you've created this really great program that everyone does now because they see the benefit of it. I mean, to me, it's just so huge to be able to get yourself warmed up, get flexible, get the muscles firing. It's just, to me, that was a game changer for me in terms of being able to get off to, for me and my golf team to get off on good starts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like, let's say with Greg here, I feel like if you can just tell people to warm up, they're not going to do it. But if you can tell them they have to, if they warm up, how to with their golf swing, then there's going to be more of a buy-in and they'll actually do it, right? So like with your golf team there, I tried to tie it in with, hey, this is going to help you with that. This will help you with that. Like, in Greg's case, it's like, hey, if I can do a 5-minute stretch, I can rotate my hips a little bit better, right? And eliminate the back pain, still up to him, but I think he's more likely to do it than if I just say, hey, you should probably stretch. So I don't know Jeff. I'm going to go back to Jeff, or up to Jeff here now. I don't know Jeff, but he sent me this video, which I appreciate. So this is kind of interesting, right? So, first thing I'm going to notice, right, if we go back to the start, first thing to notice, obviously, is that ball position. Ball position's so far back, right? So, I'm just going to be thinking in my head, like, why does he need it back so much? Now, is Jeff on the call? No?
Yeah, I'm here, yes.
Okay. Hey, Jeff, thanks for sending me the video, right?
Yep.
Like, were you trying to hit a low shot here?
Exactly. Try to knock down shots.
Okay, sounds good. So, without any context, I was analyzing your swing, but I was like, wow, I don't know if this guy, grew up in West Texas or whatever, and he just trying to hit super low shots, or if this is just he's trying to. This would be, I would say, pretty good. It's pretty good technique, right? So you get the ball back quite a bit. When we're going back, your head, you got a nice swing, right? Like your head's going back a little bit, which is not really a big deal. We're going forward. Like here, I'll show you this slow motion analysis. But I didn't know you were actually trying to hit a shot, but kind of makes more sense now, like low shot. So we're going to go to, if we go to about impact, so if we go to impact, you've moved you've really moved your center of gravity, right? Quite a bit of help. You're going to hit down on it, quite a bit here. And if we go to the start, you've got a lot of forward shaft lean, obviously. I think it's maybe a little too much. I think you might be a little bit more effective if you move the ball up a little bit and make the same, so you're not hitting down at it quite as much. I think honestly, for a knockdown, this looks pretty good. So I'm not going to get too caught up. And then I'll tell you a couple things I really like about the swing, though, is I really like coming through. I'll show you the other video. You do a really good job here of coming down. Sorry. So you're loading up. Looks good, right? You did a good job of. They talk about sequencing a lot, or ground reaction forces. It's your first thing here, so you got a little bit of a lateral push, which is great, right? Then your next move, is more of rotational. Like I love where this hip is, how this hip is over top of the knee and the ankle. That looks great, right? And now, right in here, you start doing a good job of rotating, that left hip and getting it out of the way. And you can see even how your head's releasing. It looks pretty good. This would be kind of a weird thing. Like most people like elite players I work with will work on their shot shaping, right? Most people like a normal person's not going to come for like, hey, I'm struggling with my knockdowns. That's not going to be enough to motivate them to come in for a golf lesson, right? So tour players like, hey, my gosh, my knockdowns aren't great. It cost me like a shot yet last week. That's no good, right? So we'll work on that. But for this, it's like, it's just a nice knockdown.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I've been working a lot with Greg McHatton, and a lot of it deals with the rotation, which you noted. What I've never liked and wanted to change was at impact, and more importantly, the frame or two after impact, too much of a flip rather than a supination of the left wrist or the left forearm. I see a flip. Would you consider this a problem?
No. First of all, I don't see that. It's hard. You can't really flip the ball if your center of gravity is ahead of the golf ball. It's not really possible to flip it, right? Like that's a pretty good impact position. I mean, rate of closure is a big thing with golf coaches now, but I mean, the club's going to close.
But what about right after impact? Do you see that left wrist buckling?
Yeah. I don't find a high correlation between that, like that position there, you mean? Or
No.
a little bit like one before it.
Way before it. Right about one more before that. No. Next one. Right there.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of reminds me of Patrick Reed. Do you ever see Patrick Reed's hands through impact? Right? Like it's not a classical like Ernie Els position or Adam Scott position, but I mean Patrick Reed's pretty good, and he's in that position. That wouldn't be something I just don't see high correlation between that and good golf. I would say if I was going to do a drill, let's say you're stressed out about that, hey, let's move the ball way up in our stance, like clearly in our stance, and still try to hit good shots. And that'll force that lead wrist to flex more and, lead more through left wrist. So it might make you feel better. Might make it improve a little bit. It kind of interests me that because like I thought if anything for this knockdown shot, the ball position was too far back, but it kind of is because you're maybe like worried about the flipping, so you got far. But I think if we moved it up, right, I think it's a great move it up, hit shots from there.
Okay.
And then we'll play back. I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well,
Ralph here, it's Tim O'Connor again. Here again, I invite anyone to ask a question. I'm going to go first, and then Ralph, if you got more swings to go through or whatever. But I'm wondering if so Mike Martz mentioned last week about form versus function, and I think that's often when we're looking at swings on video, when we're looking at swings on YouTube, there's a lot of emphasis on particularly as amateurs. Oh, what's my swing look like? So it's form. Is this what Jeff's asking you about the flipped wrist? Is this kind of in that area of form versus function? Because to your eyes, this doesn't seem to be an issue. To Jeff, he saw it. To him, it's an issue. So how do you strike that balance?
Yeah, I mean, nobody ever looks like the way they look on video, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I'm shorter than I thought, or whatever. So nobody's ever happy with what they look like, right? So I think it's important to kind of to only look at what's relevant to performance, right, and not aesthetics, right? So to me, this would not be a big deal. I mean, I think I was actually impressed with where it's like if you look at like how his hip, his shoulder, his hip, his knee, and his foot are all in line. I mean, that's excellent position. He's released his body well. Looks really good. I don't think I know like dealing with tour players, nobody like really cares what it looks like. They how they're hitting it and how much money they win type thing. Not like we don't get too stressed out about what it looks like. I mean, if it's effective, then that's all you need, right? So I think that's the point of it. So I think it's important. Like you asked me, like, hey, like what do you look for as a basis? I look for really good setups first. So if you look at Howard's setup here, it looks pretty good. I mean, he doesn't have excessive shoulder tilt. You know,
Ralph, I'm sorry, you just completely cut out again there, pal.
Yeah, and Howard really wants to know the good stuff that he's doing. So
yeah.
you can repeat that.
So
I just continue to do.
Well, I like there's not excessive shoulder tilt. I like how his weight's evenly distributed 50-50. I mean, his hips look neutral here. The shaft, he's got just appropriate amount of shaft lean. You know, to me, I'd look at this, go, hey, like this looks really good. Nothing here I would change other than that right foot. And
Ralph,
then,
let me ask you a question. You said something about Jeff that caught my ear about, and I love both of those swings, but you said if your center of gravity is ahead of the golf ball, it's hard to flip it. Is that something that I can start work like that? That's it. Like, is that something that I can start trying to think of so I'm not leaning back? Because I don't see any lean back in his head.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what your goal should be, because your center of gravity, yours, Howard, is too far behind the golf ball at impact, right? So
is that a matter of shifting weight, or is it a matter of tilting your upper body? I'm just trying to kind of see, because I agree. I think Jeff's swing here from this.
It's really good, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really,
it's
really good.
But what I'm just seeing is, as it relates to what you were saying to me, that I seem to be moving away from it. And I'm just trying to figure out what that shift is, because I end up okay. It's just at impact. And I hit, you know, like I said, my golf swing up until a certain pressure amount is fine.
Yeah, Howard. So once I had a tour player who had, like, first of all, most good players hang back too much, right? That's super common with good players, that they hang back a little too much, right? So it's usually like, okay, my swing's good, or I'm hanging back too much. So super common. So, you know, I did a thing for a tour player one time, and he's like, okay, like, I want to fix it, but I don't want to wreck my game, right? So I came up with a 6-point plan, each one being more intrusive than the one before it. Like, what's the simplest thing you could do that's not going to have a negative impact on your golf game that might fix it, you know, coming all the way down? So the first thing I came up with was, okay, what if we start visualizing lower shots? Right. So what if we just don't change anything, just visualizing lower shots, and let your body react, you know, and get into a position where you're going to fight the ball lower. Okay. So that was number one. Right. And that might work. Do you know what I mean? Number two was, you know, let's actually like hit lower shots, like an abbreviated follow through, and let's start, you know, flighting the ball down lower, and let's start doing that. Right. And like, let's say the sixth one was, you know, actually physically, you know, getting more lateral pressure in your feet to drive, you know, more from your trail leg onto your lead leg, which could help. Like, it's going to technically fix the problem, but it also, for a good player, would screw you up. Like, if you were 12 and you're like, hey, you know, I've golfed for, you know, a few months and I'm hanging back, you know, what should I do? I'd be like, dude, you need to drive harder with your back foot on your lead leg, right? But, you know, you're not 12. And so I would say, like, hey, like, to me, I'd say, like, you're pretty good. I'd say maybe under pressure, you know, you've talked about that a few times to me, but under pressure, I'd say, like, if you're under pressure, just hit a lower shot. If you're worried about going left, hit it lower.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
That'd be the simplest thing to do. And that would, like, kind of what Tim said about the form and function, that would, you know, go about it the other way. Like, hey, let's make good shot shape, you know, create a good swing. Like,
yeah.
You know, I was at the Players Championship one year with a player, and he, you know, was coming too much from the inside, you know, was hanging back on too much, and he's like, I'm done. I'm gonna have a turn. I was like, hey, why don't we hit bunker shots for like an hour and a half a day, right? So he's hitting all these bunker shots, you know, and we kind of picked Players Championship. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's got an amazing, best practice in the world probably. And so we hit these bunker shots where we found where you had to kind of spin it left to right in order to be effective. And you hit those for like 3 hours, right? And then when game time came, you know, his golf swing was a lot better, you know, plus his bunker play was a lot better. So I kind of like to balance out, you know, like, if we can, like with a good player, like, balance our swing out or make changes more by shot shaping than by actually consciously making the change. Like on video, like when I'm looking at this, I'm like, like with Jeff, like I thought the same thing. Like if that were actually his golf swing, I'd be like, dude, you're hitting it too low probably. Like your long iron, you have a tough time hitting that, long iron with that. So I'd be like, dude, let's go to the bunker and hit some high, soft bunker shots where you have to get your shaft more neutral. Right? That'd be the first thing I'd do with him. Now, as it turned out, it's just a nice knockdown shot, right? And then, first thing I'd do, with Greg would be, hey, let's have a better stretch, right? See how that affects it. So it's going to be different for everybody, right? But we just need to kind of focus on, like for you, if I was to pick one thing for you, I'd be like, okay, yeah, like let's try flighting it a little bit lower, right? And then, like I say, with this one, with Jeff, I'd be like, let's hit some higher shots, right? Because his center of gravity is getting too far ahead of it. And then with Greg, you just got a nice swing, just stretch more. Go ahead.
Hey, Ralph, Brandon Richardson says to me, sounds like you're asking less for a swing lesson and more about managing pressure. And the reason I'm bringing it up, Brandon, is, as the only, I guess, non-professional, but, my goal as an elite player is when I'm playing last summer in the Canadian Senior Am, and I get to a hole that's got trouble on the left side, and I hit, 2 tee shots into the trouble. I'm not really. I mean, I love what Ralph's saying, and there's some growth opportunities, and I've worked a little bit with Mike Martz as well, and like it's not about making it look better for me. It's about what do I do when I'm nervous and there's trouble where my trouble spot is. What's my what do they call that? What's my go-to shot so that I can just squeeze something to the right? Because in my everyday play, I don't hit a lot. I don't hit a lot of shots left. Mike, I don't really make that mistake. In fact, the day I took that video, I hit wedge shots out in a field for about an hour and just hit it great. And I came inside, took some swings on video. It's what I do when the stakes rise so that I can feel free to hit something that doesn't go where I don't want it to go. I guess that's why I'm asking for what I should do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I would say, and that's what you should be thinking. Like, you should be thinking, how can I, if I have trouble left, what kind of thing should I put on it? And I would say, like in your first thing I'd think of is, okay, well, let's just, if left is dead, then tee the ball down lower and flight it lower, and which is going to help you get more on top of it, which is going to stop that club from turning over as quick, right? It's not going to be as effective. You're probably going to hit it, come down a little too steep, and spin's not going to be great, but you're going to get it in play. I will say, kind of brings up an interesting point. So most tour players, you go for a club fit, not trying to pick on club fitters, but you go for a club fit, and most people are trying to maximize your launch and spin numbers. Most tour players don't do that because they're trying to get something that's going to get it in play, right? So no tour player is going to give up, is going to want 5 yards if they're going to miss 5 more fairways a week, right? So, you might not, you just have to figure out. The other thing, nobody really cares how, nobody I usually work with cares how they play in a regular day. They still, they want to get the ball in play, and they might not even be a go-to shot. It might be that's the way you hit the golf ball, from now on. Like you say, okay, well, yeah, I have tons of players who said, yeah, under pressure, like, on a Tuesday, I did a shot, no, here's how I'm gonna hit the shot. Like, nobody's gonna, like, there's flop, like, flop shots. He's like, everybody on tour can hit beautiful flop shots. I think there's only 10 guys who are willing to do it out of tight lines. Everybody can do it. I could do it. I just can't imagine doing it, in front of people. But so I think hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I want to ask Mike Martz. Mike, you've talked about reverse engineering before, and I've gotten to understand a little bit, and you opine there, if you will, to everyone about reverse engineering. What do you mean by that, and particularly link it to what you said about freeze working memory?
Well, what Ralph was talking a little bit about there, like if you were to tee the ball down and make sure that your center's in front of the shot. It's going to be hard. It's going to be pretty tough for you to miss that ball left if you get into that position. And if you were to, like, if for instance, I think the last week on the PGA.
Sorry, Mike, what position were you saying there, sir?
Well, when Ralph was talking about when your center of mass hangs back, your arms can swing left. You can release the club left and get that ball going, that shot you hate. But if you're to keep your center moving past the ball, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard for you to get that ball hitting. If your left's a duck hook or a pull hook or whatever it is, if you keep rotating and keep your center in front of that shot coming down, the shaft's going to be leaning forward more often than not, and it's going to be hard for you to hit probably that ugly left that you're looking at. So, for instance, if you were to go out and say, okay, and you may feel with that shot, I mean, do you have a sensation that when that thing's coming on, or is it a complete surprise when it happens? Howard, you're muted.
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. I don't know. I look back and do I feel it coming on? Maybe. I think what it is in certain holes where, like, I'll play a sort of a soft draw off the tee most of the time until there's some trouble there where I'm like, oh, I guess somewhere in my wiring I may hang back more and flip it, because as Ralph was saying, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, on a round that's not the Canadian seniors or the Ontario Mid-Am, I don't hit that shot very much. So it's a great question. I don't know. All of a sudden it pops up. Whereas what I'd like to do now is, and again, what Ralph made a point, I'm not looking to reorganize my entire golf swing. I've got a golf tournament ostensibly in a month if it goes through. So I'm just looking to sort of have a go-to move or have a go-to feeling where I can just aim down the left-hand side, hold the face open, and hit some kind of spinny cut into the fairway somewhere. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I think, I know some players, when they do get onto a hole, like sometimes they get on a hole and it just visually doesn't look right.
Right.
Like players just, I don't like the look of this hole. Whether you've played the golf course a number of times, or if you just get up on a hole and go, this reminds me of, the hole where you hit that ducker.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not thinking correctly here right now. So, it's not like, okay, where don't I want to miss, but where do I want to hit this shot? And maybe
Right.
even if you just reshape the way you visualize and the way you sort of create that shot in your head, that might be, kind of calm that influence and get rid of that. Other than that, I would say that maybe, when you practice, is just really try to understand face the path and create some different curving shots that if say you do hit that one ugly one and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is leaked into the water system here. Now maybe I can create something different that lets me limp around and worry about it after, rather than saying, oh my gosh, I just hit 3 of these in a row, or 3 on the front 9. And you told me that one time about where you shot the couple of big start, big finish, and had good in the middle.
Oh yeah.
So just try to get yourself a different, but reverse engineering stuff. Like I know that Finau, I think it was Andrew Rice was on the PGA, one of these broadcasts week. I don't even know, it was in isolation anyway, but he was talking about Finau and how he'd hurt his front ankle there, I think at Augusta when he made
in the
that
par
hole-in-one
3 contest.
So I mean, he wasn't really getting his, moving pressure trail side to lead side. And so as a result, I mean, took him out and had him punch a bunch of balls underneath branches. Well, I mean, he got that movement because he was able to punch the ball under the branch, he got the result he wanted. So as a result, he reverse engineered the technique to create it. So it wasn't on the range where it said, we're going to push pressure back to front. We're just going to create a shot that has to be low. And if you're able to do that, you're going to create the technique to create that shot.
Okay.
So that's reverse engineering technique.
All right. Hey, thank Mike.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, Ralph, I wanted Barry Gorley is asking, do you have video of some of those exercises, those warm-up exercises?
Yeah, I can send them over to you, Barry, but it's on my Instagram page. But I've got it on my Twitter. I added a link to a YouTube page. And I'm not saying it's the best stretching program out there, because I've seen a lot of good ones. It's just ones that I've run guys through and I've had some pretty good success with. And I also like having people do it so that I use it as a screen as well, Barry. So I'm sure you've got some good ones too. I just like that, the one I've got.
No, thanks. Awesome.
Shoot me a note though on Facebook or whatever if you can't find it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So Ralph, just in the short period of time we have left, when you kind of, I don't know if it's too big, but do you have like a process almost that when you first get a video from somebody, is there almost like stages you go through in terms of looking at it once, looking for something, and then for something else? Is there a process?
Not really. I mean, I feel like you just have to come in with a clear mind and see what you got to work with and kind of go from there. Like I wish, like I think it's important not to have predisposed or like go into something with like, okay, here's what I'm going to do.
But I realized
that's when you kind of get into the issues.
Okay, because I got an hour off between my next thing.
Howard, mute yourself.
Oh yeah. I was just talking about dogging and picking up stuff. Hi guys. Hey Ralph, you're very nice. Thanks for your help today.
Okay, thanks. Have a good one.
I'm somehow surprised I'm knocked off what the heck I was going to ask you next. Oh, I don't know. Do you have to kind of get people, maybe this is saying my earlier question or comment differently, but as you say, most people are very hypercritical of how they look at themselves on video. Do you have to teach people how to, particularly if they're, say, videoing themselves, whether they're pros or amateurs, how to look at the video they shot of themselves? Because I think, like me, I immediately go, oh my God, can't believe I'm doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to, like, let's say that when I'm doing tour players, I've had a few who are like, hey, I don't like this position. I'm like, okay, well, let's hit some shots, get into that position, right? And then see what happens to, I use a foresight, a quad. I'm like, hey, let's put you on the quad and see what your numbers are. And I'm like, hey, your numbers are actually good when you're doing that. It's like, oh, okay, well, now I think that's a good position to be in, right? So just kind of showing them that, if the numbers are good, if you're hitting good shots, then that's a good position. If the numbers aren't good, you're not hitting good shots, it's not a good position. So, I think we need to, I guess a little bit that way in terms of, hey, you need to know what works for you, because everybody, videotapes are swinging their phone now, right? I mean, so if they're just doing that themselves, which they're going to do anyways, it's nice they did it with some guidance, from us for sure. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does totally. Because lots of people, I think they would take video of themselves, and I know quite honestly, if I take video of myself at the range, I can't wait to get it home, and I look at it, and it's like, oh my gosh, really? I'm doing that? Oh crap! And then I might look at somebody else, and I'll go like, oh really? I got to do what Ernie or somebody else is doing. And that's when I go off the rails, when I'm trying to match some kind of model.
Yeah, I mean, we call the PGA Tour the copycat tour. So, the best players in the world are still doing that too. They're like, hey, this person won. He's been playing good. I should switch over to the putter he's using, or I should, make my backswing a little bit more like his. So, I mean, that's super common, I think, with humans. So, I mean, as a coach, I'm just glad that people get into bad habits all the time, so that keeps us in business.
So we just got a couple minutes left. So I want to ask, what about, this has been talked a few times during these calls about the whole idea of swinging according to a model. Like we just said, you see somebody on YouTube, Matthew Wolf, who's got kind of a different way of going about it. Some people are saying, well, maybe that's the way to do it. What's your sense of trying to match a model?
Yeah, I mean, we all have models. I mean, everybody. I mean, I want people to use both hands. Stand, use both legs, right? I mean, hit most of their shots from the same side of the golf ball, right? But I feel like if you have a model, I feel like first of all, the most successful people financially have models, right? And so it's hard to knock it. Also, tour players want model. I mean, everybody wants. Most people want somebody that has a model.
Are you talking a plan or a model?
I'm talking about a model. People want some guidance on what they're how they can fit into the model, which to me is crazy. but that's kind of what people want. I'm just saying, if you wanted to, I think it's a model. I don't have one, but I mean, it's kind of funny because I've had quite a bit of time to think last month, and maybe I do. I mean, I do want people to to be healthy, and have steady spine angles is important to me, and then to get your body capable of doing that is super important to me. But that model thing, I'm gonna leave that alone for now. But I will say, in guys who have a model's defense, super lucrative to have a model.
You're talking about the business of coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. It's people want to see what they're doing right. And, I'm doing this wrong. I got matched this model. Well, I'll pay somebody for that. I totally see how that would work. That would fit into Howard and I talk about it on our podcast all the time. Golf culture. People want to get fit, but my thing is, I don't think the people necessarily get any better when they try and swing according to a model. But I'm an amateur, but that's sort of my experience with it. So it's a really interesting place, and we've kind of got into kind of an interesting can of worms, as it were. And here we are coming up to the end of our call. So just in the time remaining, hey, Ralph, man, thank you so much for leading us on our call today and taking us through. It was just fascinating to me to learn about your process, some of the key things that you look for when you're analyzing video, and just in watching you go through these swings. Howard,
Thank
Jeff,
you very much, Ralph.
thanks for sending it. It's great. So I just want to say
Thanks,
thank you
guys.
so much. And
That was fun.
thanks for coming on the call, everybody. I'm going to post this to my YouTube channel, and have a great week. Hope the Ontario course is open soon and everyone stays safe and you remain healthy. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Sorry.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Hey, you're welcome. Hey, Ralph, that was fun.